All right, we are going live and we've got an excellent connection. Okay. Hey, everybody, Chuck Holton here. It looks like the ceasefire has fallen apart in Gaza. And if you're surprised about that, you haven't been watching the news very much. Uh, Everybody knows Hamas has something like 54 hostages and hostage bodies left in Gaza. For the last couple of weeks, the United States and Israel have been pushing the Hamas fighters that are left in there to continue with the plan of giving up a few hostages a week in exchange uh, for aid to be able to go into Gaza. And they have been staunchly refusing to play ball. Hamas has been saying the only thing that we'll accept is to go on to phase 2 of the ceasefire agreement, which means Israel pulls out and we win. And that's a non-starter for Israel, always was. So it's no surprise that Israel is, not going to do that at all. And they tried for several weeks to make something happen, but now it looks like it's all over. So there's a whole lot of kinetic activity going on across the region tonight. Israel is striking hard in Gaza. They've had 9 weeks or something to update their target lists, and now they're going to start going down those target lists and taking out some targets. They've been tracking very closely what movements have been taking place inside Gaza. They have sensors in place in the air, on the ground, and everywhere in between that are feeding data back to the IDF about the whereabouts and the disposition of Hamas troops inside Gaza. And they're going to now open up the gates of hell, as they have said, against Hamas. As a matter of fact, I'll read for you just a few moments ago, there was a, Defense Minister Katz said, quote, "If Hamas does not release all the hostages, the gates of hell will open in Gaza, and the murderers and rapists of Hamas will meet the IDF with forces they have never known before." So that was from Defense Minister Katz. But it's not just in Gaza where there is kinetic activity happening. In Syria, the IDF has been conducting sorties to take out additional military hardware, additional military headquarters, and other important figures that they have identified. So they've been causing Hamas commanders and people like that are leftovers who are driving around out there to just suddenly evaporate. They've been doing that more and more over recent days, but especially tonight, apparently there's a lot going on in Syria. Not only that, but the Syrian government, if you want to call it that, it's not a legitimate government, but the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham terror group, which took over most of Syria in that coup when they deposed Bashar al-Assad back in December, is now moving their troops to the border and going to war with Lebanon. So the Lebanese army and remnants of Hezbollah are fighting cross-border skirmishes with HTS, with casualties reported on both sides. And I'm sure that nobody in the Knesset or the IDF is shedding any tears over that or wanting to put a stop to it in any way. But they are taking the opportunity to identify and track and eliminate further targets that could be a threat to Israel. On top of that, they're also eliminating targets still in Lebanon. So think of it. Tonight, right now as we speak, there are IDF troops that are conducting raids inside Judea and Samaria and the Hebron, in places like Jenin and Tukaram and all Nablus, all across there. They have constant ongoing operations inside there, and they've taken out, well, dozens, they've unalived dozens of Hamas fighters in there. As I've been saying for a long time, once they wipe out all the Hamas fighters in Gaza, that's what they call a good start, because now they've got to deal with all the Hamas fighters in the West Bank areas of Judea, Samaria, and the Hebron. On top of that, Hamas still has fighters in Lebanon. And it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't have some people in Syria, and if some of them hadn't moved over into Jordan even. So this is nowhere near finished, but the IDF is now given up on the additional peace talks for the time being, and is sending in their jets. And apparently it is on. It is lit tonight in Gaza. Now, on top of all that, the United States continues its campaign of bombings against Yemen. They have made at least three major sorties at this point, three major bombing missions into Yemen. I think it would be easy to very quickly run out of things to bomb in Yemen, because there's not a whole lot in Yemen. And they are focusing on taking out headquarters, weapons caches, critical infrastructure in some cases, headquarters buildings, government buildings, things like that. According to the briefing that was given at the Pentagon just a little while ago, they're saying that there are something in the dozens of casualties on the ground in terms of Houthi fighters who have lost their lives. They say that they have no evidence that there are any civilian casualties. Obviously, they're being very careful about not causing any civilian casualties. That's why they're striking in the middle of the night for some reason, for one reason. I mean, if you're going to take out a government building, doing it at 2:00 in the morning is probably the best time to do it if you don't want to kill a bunch of people. And so, except for maybe the night watchman, there's not really anybody there, and they just collapse the building. Well, that is not going to stop the Houthis. As I mentioned on my own podcast today, when I did my live just a few hours ago, I talked at length about this, that the Houthis don't have much to begin with. So if you bomb all their stuff, they're not really going to care about that a whole lot. And they're going to find any way they can to continue to fight, or at least claim to be fighting. Now, yesterday they made a claim that they had attacked the USS Harry S. Truman, aircraft carrier out in the Red Sea. As it turned out, what the spokesperson at the Pentagon said when he was asked about that was, he said, well, maybe they did attack us, but it's actually kind of hard to tell, because they're so bad that their closest missile missed us by over 100 miles. So they were nowhere even close to striking the ship. So no U.S. ships to this point have been harmed, U.S. naval vessels. The Houthis have managed to sink 4 cargo ships throughout the last 15 months and capture one more. And so that's their big trophy right now. And as a matter of fact, the United States, I believe, did a bombing run on that ship. It's, I just spaced on the name. I forgot the name. You guys will help me in the comments. The name of that ship that the Houthis captured and made a music video about, it was just absolute clown show on the part of the Houthis. But the U.S. actually did a fire mission on the control tower in that ship, because there were terrorists in there, bad guys in there, and they were, targets of opportunity, probably threatening the aircraft that shot at them, perhaps. We don't know. So there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, fireworks in Gaza, fireworks in Yemen, fireworks in Syria, fireworks in Lebanon. We're thinking there may soon be fireworks in Iran because Iran has moved all of its missile forces onto high alert, has told all of its forces to be ready for an attack at any time. There have been U.S. Uh, drones, surveillance drones, that have been circling over important areas of Iran over the last 12 hours, which that's new. That's new. And so uh, Iran is expecting that there may soon be an attack against it. That's because President Trump put out a very strongly worded message today uh, saying, why is MK repeating Amos like 15 times? That's annoying. Once is enough, man. Once is enough, MK. Don't need to keep posting it over and over and over again. Uh, so President Trump put out a very strongly worded message that said to Iran, first of all, it said to the Houthis, you better stop firing at ships or it's going to go very badly for you. But then he made a point of saying specifically that we will hold Iran accountable if there is any more aggression from the Houthis. So anything that flies out of Yemen at this point, we're going to consider to be an Iranian missile and we're going to react accordingly. So Donald Trump is laying his cards on the table and promising some retribution inside Iran if the Houthis decide to continue. And they held a huge uh, protest or a rally, cheerleading session, I don't know what you want to call it, inside Yemen today in Sana'a with 100,000 screaming jihadis screaming for more aggression against the ships and against Israel. So, okay, bring it. Israel's like, fine, whatever. The Houthis fired a missile yesterday at Israel, apparently at Israel. It landed somewhere in Egypt. The Houthis never been real good at aiming. You know, they've fired hundreds and hundreds of rockets and drones in the last 15 months, and they've really done very, very little with them. And what can you expect? These people don't go to school. They certainly don't go to the shooting range. They get given all this high-tech weaponry by Iran. Russia probably sends some people in there to help them figure out how to turn it on and push the button to make it go boom. But that's probably the extent of their abilities in terms of their technology. So with that in mind, I don't think the Houthis are a huge threat to Israel. They're more of a threat to the U.S. Ships that are in the region because we're closer to Yemen. But they've got a lot of defenses there, and so far they've been shooting at U.S. ships on and off throughout the entire war, and they've yet to hit one. But there is still some risk there, and all they have. The thing is, the Houthis only have to get it right once, just once. We have to get it right every single time, and so far we have. But let's hope that continues. And it is time, after this. It's kind of reminds me of you had when I was in junior high school, and you had this one friend from church who was just about 2 or 3 years younger than everybody, but he hung around with your group of friends, and he was just annoying and just pick, 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 trying to get attention, until finally one of the guys just decided that it's time for him to get a little attention, and turned around and smacked him real good. That's kind of what the Houthis are like down there. They're just making a nuisance of themselves. Iran is goading them into it. Doesn't take much. They don't, they don't have much else to do down there. I mean, you can only follow the back end of a camel around so much, and then you get bored and you want something to do. Let's just watch something blow up, even if it's our own country. So I wouldn't expect that the Houthis are going to back down, and I would expect that this will escalate more, that we are very likely going to be seeing strikes on Iran in the near future. Now, some people are worried, oh, goodness, this is World War III. Look, we're already in World War III. This is World War III. We're in it. I've been saying this for a long time. You've heard me. World War III is not going to look like World War II, just like World War II didn't look like World War I. Wars evolve. And now that a lot of people have nukes, a world war is going to look very different than it did the last time when not everybody had nukes. So this is what it's going to look like, is a bunch of proxy forces fighting each other on behalf of the big boys, and the big boys stepping in when they feel like it's warranted. But what you likely will not see anytime in the next few months are nuclear weapons being employed. You're not going to likely see the United States going to war directly, like on the ground in conventional warfare against Iran. We don't want to occupy Iran. We don't want to, there's very few Americans that have the stomach for putting troops back on the ground for the next 20 years, like we did for the last 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran would be a very intractable problem because they have a very large army, 500,000 people. They have a lot of equipment for conventional style war, although it's not in good shape and it's old and they're not very well trained on it. But if we were to put troops on the field, there would be a long-term, probably insurgency going across that country. It's a very large country. And we don't want to commit to that. But we'll bomb those people 9 ways from Sunday. And you're not going to likely win a war decisively through only bombings, unless you did go nuclear, which they're not, they won't. And so if you can't win the war by bombing, the best you can hope for is to have a very strong deterrent effect. If they slap Iran hard enough to maybe knock a few teeth loose, slap it that hard, Iran might just do what Hezbollah is doing right now, which is just licking its wounds and hoping to reconstitute at some point in the future. If you cripple their economy to an extent that it causes the regime to collapse, that's an option, but it's a much riskier option because there's a lot of unintended consequences you could have by destroying their energy infrastructure or their industry. For example, like I mentioned on the last live, you could make the price of oil skyrocket, double, and that would be a huge boon to Russia. And you almost have to wonder if Russia is saying, what can we do to improve the chances that the United States takes out the oil refineries in Iran and causes the price of oil to skyrocket? What could we do? How could we put our thumb on the scale? And if there's a way they can figure out how to do it, you can bet they're going to do it. Russia desperately needs the price of oil to go up right now. Now, my question is, what Fool's Tool Reviews says this is the end of the world. Well, then why are you watching YouTube, dude? If it's the end of the world, I certainly don't want to be watching YouTube when the end of the world comes. I'm going to go out and sit on the balcony and watch the sunset or something. So thank you, Mama Rissa. Mama Rissa's riding herd on the trolls and the crazy commenters today. I appreciate Mom Marissa and all the work she does. And look, I don't ask her to do it. She just does this out of the goodness of her heart, and she's quite a person. I'm very. She's a great American. Let's put it that way. She puts the American in American. So President Trump has got to hopefully be considering all these options. That if we go hard against Iran and do some sort of actual conventional strikes on Iran, if we take out their nuclear plants, that's one thing. If we take out their electricity, that's treading on a fine line. If we take out their oil refineries, we could do more harm than good to ourselves in the second and third order effects of a war. And this is the real point here that I wanted to make, is that you never ever know what the second and third and fourth order effects are going to be when you start a war. Hamas probably did not have it on their bingo card that Operation Grim Reaper would take out their biggest ally in the region, Hezbollah. They probably did not even expect that if they expected October 7th to go differently, it was probably that they either one expected all of the Muslim world to join them and just overrun Israel, or number two, they thought it would be a great victory for Hamas. Israel would respond, in kind. They didn't expect that thousands of Palestinian civilians would flood across the fences and rape and pillage across southern Israel for days on end. And that they would be so successful at it. They probably thought they'd get stopped much sooner than they did. Whatever they were thinking, there's no way that they could have foreseen what the end of this thing will likely look like. None of us can. And so it bears being careful and thinking real hard about each step we take into the abyss of war in that region. I'm not saying I don't support President Trump's actions here. I do. I think President Trump is doing exactly the right things so far. He's doing his best to get out whatever hostages is possible. When it becomes clear that getting more hostages out is probably not going to happen, then it's time to send out the Navy and the Air Force and let loose the dogs of war. So, just to recap for those of you that are coming on late, the United States is striking inside Yemen still. This is going to be an ongoing campaign. But the big news tonight is that the ceasefire has ended, maybe not officially, but unofficially, inside Gaza, because the IDF is pounding Gaza right now with airstrike after airstrike. And the people in Gaza have had a reprieve from that for about 9 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to send in ground troops or if they just are going to content themselves for now with airstrikes. But if they do send in ground troops, then they have to decide if they're going to push everybody back out of the north that they were just allowed back into the north. Probably. They probably would have to. Now, I posted over at chuckholton.com. If you're not a member at chuckholton.com, you should be, because I put a lot of extra information up there, a lot of stuff that, if I get a scoop or if I get breaking news, I'm going to put it over at chuckholton.com first before I come over here to YouTube. So you can go to chuckholton.com and get written articles about everything I'm talking about. And one of the things that I posted over there was a post that was put up tonight, just several hours ago, and I'll just read it to you. I'll go over here and read it to you if I can get this working. Let's see here. ChuckHolton.com takes you to locals, by the way. So if you end up at locals, don't think you got gated or something. That's what's supposed to happen. So there's a guy named Hillel Fould on Facebook. He posted a couple hours ago that for the past hour, I've been bombarded with messages about something unusual going on in Gaza. Was just cleared that Israel indeed detected increased Hamas activity, indicating that Hamas was planning some sort of ground invasion into Israel. Now, that's the only thing I've seen about that. But what we see now is Israel committing airstrikes against Gaza. And so it's likely that they are preemptively striking any concentrations of Hamas fighters that they see massing anywhere across Gaza, but especially anywhere near the border. And it may be that we will find out in the hours or days to come that Hamas was planning an actual attack on Israel, and that attack was thwarted by what Israel decided to do tonight. That kind of makes sense because I don't believe that Israel would have just, I mean, they had to eventually get to a point where they're going to go, okay, we're not going to negotiate anymore. We're just going to start bombing stuff. And so that point was going to come, but I don't know if it would have come tonight unless there was some other catalyst. And we got word earlier tonight that Benjamin Netanyahu was being rushed to the bunker where they plan and execute their military operations. So that's one clue. The other clue was this post on Facebook that there's rumors floating around that Hamas may be about to attack Israel again. And then immediately after that, we hear that Israel is striking inside Gaza. But again, for those of you that are just joining us, they're not only striking in Gaza, they are also striking many sorties, at least 30 of them, inside Syria tonight and inside Lebanon. So Israel is bombing pretty much everybody at this point. And they've got troops on the ground inside Judea and Samaria going to town there. So Israel is serious about putting an end to this conflict, but they have a long way to go. There's no two ways about that. Okay, wanted to see if there's any questions real quick. I only was planning on staying on for about a half hour tonight. We'll take a look at some of your questions and comments. What percentage of Gaza is, if any, is even inhabitable at this point? That's a good question, Chris. What I have seen in the press is that 92% of the residential buildings in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. Now, that doesn't mean they're uninhabitable. Some of them certainly are. Damage can take many forms. If the outside of your house got blasted with shrapnel, that's not going to take your house down. It might break some windows or something. But that would count, right, as being damaged or destroyed. I think probably it's safe to say at least 60% of all of the buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, especially buildings that are within a couple kilometers of the border fence with Israel. Israel has gone through there with bulldozers online and has just flattened a large buffer zone from the border fence all the way into Gaza City, in the north especially. Rita Chafin says, will you be going back to the war zone soon? Well, I'm going to go to a different kind of war zone this Friday. I'll be flying over to Guam to do a report on the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Iwo Jima. I'll be interviewing some survivors that are actually left, believe it or not, after 80 years since the battle. We have plans to try to get on to Iwo Jima if we can make that work. We're also going to go to the island of Tinian and Saipan, and we'll do reports from out there because the United States is now rebuilding airstrips out there in the middle of the Pacific in anticipation of having to go to war with China sometime in the next few years. They've put I think, $400 million contract into rebuilding the airfield that saw the Enola Gay take off to bomb Hiroshima in World War II. So that's going to make an interesting story. And after that, I'll be coming back to Panama. We have a tour of people from my podcast, The Hot Zone, here on YouTube, that's coming to Panama. And we're going to be just relaxing and having more of a retreat and less than a tour uh, here in Panama for a few days. And then immediately after that, I'll be flying to Syria. So I will be entering Syria if all things go as they're supposed to sometime in mid-April. So stay tuned for that. And I'll be bringing you whatever reports I can from in there. But a lot of times when I'm in Syria, I can't report live on what I'm doing because we'd be putting out our location and that would be really, really, really dangerous. But you're going to want to stay tuned. I will be putting a lot of reports in while I'm over there. So please hit the like button, folks. And if you want to support CBN and the news that you see here from CBN, please go to cbn.com and donate over there. We put your money to very good use to help a lot of people around the world. And cbn.com is the place to do it. Your thoughts on Witkoff? Witkoff is being sent by the president. He's a former real estate lawyer. I'm not sure why that makes him a great negotiator, but apparently he is, and he's being sent to negotiate terms with all different sorts of strongmen and bad people around the globe, including President Putin and President Maduro of Venezuela. And wouldn't surprise me if he went and talked to the Ayatollah of Iran if the guy would ever agree to talk. But that's what he's being sent to do. And I pray that he will definitely be successful. Mr. Lobotomy is talking about red heifers again. Oh, more red heifers. Why? Why? Why, God? Why? Okay. No, let's not talk about red heifers. I ate some red heifer when I was in Israel last week. I They have a red heifer restaurant, and it was not good beef. Actually, it wasn't very good. This is the start of a better world coming. Okay, good. What do you think would happen if, God forbid, the Houthis got a big major hit with casualties on a U.S. ship? That is a good question, Nelson. You can bet if the Houthis actually did manage to strike something that was a U.S. government or Navy vessel, the response from the United States would, the Houthis would probably go, oh no, if they saw that they actually hit a ship. They wouldn't dance around screaming, aloha snack bar. They would probably be running for the hills because they would know that it was coming down. And our response in Yemen, like I said, if we turned Yemen into Gaza, would be doing Yemen a favor because it would make it better than it is already. You got to feel for the people of Yemen. There's probably more starvation in Yemen than any other country on planet Earth right now. And that is all due to the Houthis, because when your worldview is all about who you hate and not about who you love, you don't get to have nice things. So please hit that like button, folks. Let YouTube know more people need to be watching these lives. And if you have any further questions, put them in the chat bar right now real quick, and I will try to get to them before we have to go. I'm just, let's see here. I'm scrolling back through the messages, looking for questions. And you guys are commenting on my body armor over there. I just brought it home from Israel and I had to put it someplace. So I haven't got around to cleaning up my office yet. So it's just sitting there on the table. You don't leave. Where do you put your body armor? I mean, what I really need is one of those cross-looking trees that all the officers have in the military, where they get to hang their body armor and make it look real nice. I don't have one of those. I was a sergeant, so I don't rate a wooden thing. Scott Ritter says Israel is finished. Scott Ritter has been saying Israel is finished for 15 months, and he's been wrong, and he's still wrong. Colonel McGregor, same thing. He's been saying Israel is finished. He's wrong. He's still wrong. I just came back from Israel. Israel is doing just fine. Israel is not collapsing. They are in very high spirits. The IDF is trained and prepared, more ready than they've ever been. They have full support now from the United States. Their economy is rebounding. Tourism is coming back. Airlines are starting to fly back into Tel Aviv. What part of this sounds like Israel is collapsing? There are all kinds of things that I could say regarding Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor, but uh, I will refrain, and I will give you my opinions about those things on my own podcast. So if you want to follow my podcast and hear more about what I think about this stuff, uh, go over to chuckholton.com or go to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton and subscribe over there. I do daily live updates, and we put shortened updates and even shorter updates and shorts, all kinds of updates from crises and wars and disasters around the world, along with my wonderful commercials for various energy drinks that I encounter in my travels. I have a very bad habit of wanting to try every different energy drink on planet Earth, and that's probably not good for my health. But it does make for some funny commercials. Suffice it to say, folks, that we will keep you updated here on CBN's YouTube channel with the very latest from Israel. We've got people on the ground there. They're all sleeping now. When they wake up, you'll see more lives from them. And then if you want to hear more commentary about different things and history lessons and things like that about that gives you context for how to understand what's going on in the world, go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton here on YouTube and subscribe over there. So see if there's any other questions. My church is starting to plan a trip to Israel in November. Yes. Good. Yes, you absolutely should go to Israel. This is a great time to go to Israel. Mama Marissa's been watching too much Blippy today. I don't know what that is, and I'm not sure I want to know because I don't have small children anymore. All right. Well, that's all I've got. And like I say, if there is any further information, any breaking news, check here first, because CBN is trying to give you that live content that you don't have to pay for anymore. I know everybody they cut the cable now. They used to have 500 channels of nothing worth watching on TV and paid $200 a month for that. Now you can get it for free here on YouTube. Just come check out CBN's YouTube channel when big things happen. All right. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Well, let's pray real quick and then we'll get out of here. Lord, we come to you right now and we ask your wisdom for the leadership of the United States military and the IDF as they go about prosecuting this war. You tell us in Romans 12, Lord, that our soldiers are God's agent of wrath against the evildoer. And so, Lord, I pray that you would make their swords and their shields strong and steady and accurate, and that they would be able to actually visit your wrath on the evildoers around the world. That you would bless their efforts to do that, Lord, that their righteous application of violence. Lord, we know that you are a God of love and a God of peace. And we also understand, Lord, that for us to have peace here on a fallen, sinful earth, that we've got to have those agents of wrath in order to stand between us and the barbarians of this earth. So, Lord, I pray that you would strengthen them and protect them and guide them, and that you would give Israel ultimate victory and bring peace in Jerusalem. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.